Sometimes it's hard to decide whether a fragrance is worth the money or not. Is it something you should spend the money on or save up for, or should you pass on it and go into something different? Today I've compiled a list of what I believe to be some fragrances that are worth splurging on. And, really quick, a lot of these are pretty reasonably priced. A couple of them are going up over $100, but really a lot of these are, for the most part, staying right at around 100, or some of these a bit less than that. So we're not going into niche that is, $200, $300, $400+ where it's insane. These are still relatively reasonable considering just where we're at these days with prices. But still, it can be a bit of a commitment sometimes. You want to make sure that you're going to be happy with what you're spending your money on. And I think these will provide that for a lot of you if you know what you like and what your taste is, and you can align that with the options in here. This first one's actually something that is new. It's an Elixir, Boss Bottled Elixir. It was on sale for $60 for 100 ml. That's kind of an anomaly, right? That's not always going to be the case with this one. So let's use a more realistic number. $80 for 100 ml, because that's where this one has been sitting on discounters for a while now, pretty consistently right there. So that sale price was insane, and hopefully you guys were watching the channel on my mailing list, etc., and you could have gotten a bottle of that, $60, 100 ml. But even at $80, even $90, to me, this one is an absolute no-brainer, complete steal at that price point. I love this stuff. This is probably going to be one of my favorite new releases of the year. Not only that, but it's pretty quickly become one of my favorites within this lineup. And even if I were to kind of stack this up against, Hugo Boss, the scent and those fragrances, this one really can hold a candle against those too. I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's one of those things that just resonates with me a lot. And sometimes it's a personal thing. A lot of the times it's a personal thing where it's just, you smell something and it just clicks with you, And I think all of you guys can probably relate to that, not necessarily with this, but other things as well. For me, this one has done that. It's got frankincense, patchouli, cardamom, and some cedarwood in here. It's a smoky, sweet, rich, resinous men's scent that it smells phenomenal. Creamy, rich, kind of mysterious. Absolutely love this stuff. That opening is fantastic too. It has kind of a spicy woodiness, and some of that smokiness starts to come through as well. It's quite a bit different than, the original and Boss Bottled Intense and pretty much all of the other Boss Bottled scents. This one kind of stands on its own. But it is, like a true elixir scent, at least in my opinion. When you look at how elixirs are being formulated these days, a lot of times they're going to be, strong, rich, heavy, and stronger performing and more full-bodied than a lot of their other, prior counterparts. And that's kind of what this one is doing as well. I'm not going to spend all day on this stuff, right? But love Boss Bottled Elixir, and I think it is 100% worth the money. If it's something that you've been on the fence about, sample it, try it, just give it a shot. Now this next one, it's super reasonable too, even more so. I believe it's, $50, maybe $55 on discounters, somewhere around in there. Versace AOS Flame. This guy's been out for a while now. Definitely not new, right? And it's one that has just grown on me ever since day one, but especially more so recently. I've just been appreciating it more, and I don't know why, but I have been. It's got orange, lemon, pepper, and tonka bean. To me, it's just a lot more wearable than the original AOS and, even to some extent, the Eau de Parfum and the Parfum. Now, I love AOS Parfum. It's one of my favorites within the lineup. But that is very similar to the original. It's just stronger. So they fixed that performance issue that has kind of come about over the years as AOS has been changed and altered over the years. The Parfum, it takes all the guesswork out of performance. Like, it is a strong performer. This is going to be a different smell. And you'll notice, just kind of reading off the note breakdown there, it has some citrus, some fruits off the top, a peppery note. It's not as minty and vanillic and sweet. It actually has a little bit more of a creamy, aromatic, and fresh approach, giving it that added versatility that I was kind of talking about. I really only view AOS Parfum, Eau de Parfum, Original, as a winter scent, you know, and you can argue that it could be good in spring because it's kind of minty and green, you know, some aspects about it, but it's so sweet and it's so strong that I prefer it for winter. And winter, you know, it's one season of the year, and yeah, you can kind of stretch it into, you know, late fall, whatever, but I think AOS Flame, you could kind of work this one into summer evenings and spring and fall and winter as well. It has more usability to it, and I really like it. And I think it's worth every bit of what it's going for online on discounters. Brioni Eau de Parfum Eclat is up next. We'll kind of go for something summer focused because of the time that we're in right now. It's got grapefruit, pink pepper, musk, and ambroxan. And, you know, compared to all the existing Brioni Eau de Parfums currently, this one's going to be the freshest of the bunch. And this is very typical of a life cycle of a fragrance line, right? You know, you start off with the original, you start putting out a few flankers, they get sweeter and heavier, but then they'll always put out kind of like a fresh summer edition, and that's what this one is acting as. And that's not to say that the original Eau de Parfum couldn't be worn in the summer, or the new Brioni Eau de Parfum Essentiel couldn't be worn in the summer. You could kind of swing those a little bit, but this one by far is going to be the most appropriate for the super high heat that we're experiencing right now. You know, 85, 90 plus degrees, sunny, maybe a bit humid. This is going to work well for that. It does have a refreshing, cooling nature about it that some of the other ones do lack. You know, the Eau de Parfum Intense has an apple oud sweetness about it. The Eau de Parfum, it has a nice violet leaf, but there are some slightly sweeter notes too. This one doesn't have much of any sweetness. It's bright and fresh from start to finish. This one's found its way on discounters just like most of these have at this point. They usually hit pretty quickly. And off the top of my head, this is probably going to be a, you know, not the most accurate guess, but I think, you know, $60 to $70, somewhere around in there. Not cheap, but also not outrageous either. I think it's worth the money for a great, somewhat unique summer scent. Sticking with that summer trend, we have Aqua De Jour Profondo. I've been a fan of this ever since its release, and I still remember it. Still remember trying it on camera for the first time, you know. It really kind of, I don't know, it just left a very positive impression on me initially. And ever since then, I've grown to like it more and more. You know, and imitation is the best form of flattery. At this point, there have been a few fragrances out there that have kind of been modeled after this one. And that's only the beginning. I mean, this has been out for 4 years now, which really isn't all that long, you know, and it's, I think, going to continue to be a big success. And I think we'll continue to see more clones and more inspirations of this one as time goes on. And look, we just got a flanker of this one this year, Profondo Parfum, which to some might not make a whole lot of sense, but for me, it was a really warmly welcomed release. I like that one a lot. It's simply just a nighttime version of Profondo, just like you have Aqua De Jour Eau de Toilette and Aqua De Jour Profumo / Parfum, daytime, nighttime. I view the same thing here because really, to me, Profondo is kind of like its own little, you know, entity, so to speak. It really doesn't smell a lot like the original Aqua De Jour. It kind of does its own thing with the mineral notes and the orange and everything like that. It's different. So to have now a daytime and a nighttime version of this, I think is pretty cool. I do think for what it's worth, it's a pretty unique summer scent. Aside from some things kind of smelling similar to it now, this was kind of first of its kind, and that's kind of how the Aqua De Jour lineup has evolved over the years. If you want a very refreshing, cooling, compliment-pulling summer scent, Aqua De Jour Profondo is great. And on discounters, I mean, really, it's not too crazy expensive. Expect to pay anywhere from, you know, 110, 115, 120, and sometimes maybe even less. Now, next up, we do have a niche fragrance, but, you know, in typical Mancera fashion, I mean, they're not even niche priced. Actually, a lot of these are more affordable than designer scents these days. It's Tona Cola, you know. Now, really, I wouldn't recommend you to buy this size bottle. As far as price per mil goes, typically, this is just not the way to go. I got this because I was the only option that was available to me when making the purchase, and I wanted to get it because I had been waiting for it. You know, they announced it, and then just crickets, like it usually goes. Finally, I had the chance to buy it, 60 ml. I just didn't think twice. I went for it. You know, typically the price difference of these on discounters is not very much. You know, to go from 60 ml to 120 ml standard size, you're not spending a whole much extra, but you're getting double the amount. So just keep that in mind. And what is the price of this one on discounters? Right now, I see it for $97 for 120 ml, full presentation. That's about standard. Typically $100 or less. If you're paying over $100, then you're getting into the area of, you know, you could probably get it cheaper. It retails for $180, which isn't unreasonable either for a niche brand, but again, don't pay retail. You can get these for below. And what does this remind me of? I mean, it reminds myself and a lot of people of Rosa Parfum's Creation E or Enigma, same thing. And it does smell like that, but with its own twist as well. You know, it's kind of like how Cedrat Boisé kind of is like Aventus by Creed a little bit, but they're still pretty different. It puts itself into that category and does its own thing. That's what's going on here. This one has cherry, Coca-Cola, and cinnamon in here. I love the note breakdown. I love Coca-Cola. You know, it gives it that fizzy smell, right? And you do pick up on it here. Kind of a bubbly, fizzy, sparkling smell, a warm spiciness from the cinnamon, and then cherry, which is kind of giving it this overall unique fruitiness, but it kind of goes along with the Coca-Cola note. You know, like a nice fizzy cherry Coke smell with a considerable amount of sweetness too. It's like Enigma, but it doesn't have a boozy accord or a tobacco. So again, some you know, differences between the two, but definitely has a classy, sophisticated, and refined smell to it. For less than $100, there's nothing about this that says you shouldn't buy it. Now, this next one is a new release as well, but it's, to me, a pretty impressive one. It's Prada Lunar Rosa Ocean Le Parfum. That can kind of get to be a tongue twister if you say it too fast. Prada Lunar Rosa Ocean. It's got oak, saffron, and amber extreme. It reminds me a lot of the Eau de Parfum, which I really like, and I've talked about it before. I think it's a really good release, Ocean EDP. I've never been the biggest fan of the Eau de Toilette, and I don't think it smells bad. I don't think it's a horrible release. I think as far as getting compliments and having a versatile scent, A+, but not as exciting. The Eau de Parfum, considerably better, like big steps in the right direction. And this one, again, it reminds me a lot of the Eau de Parfum, but they just take it a step further, make it a little bit more strong, has a little bit more potency to it, both in performance, but also the scent itself. It's just more refined, and really, it's better. You know, and until you have them side by side and you smell them and you spend time wearing both of them, you know, you might not necessarily compute, you know, and get to that point having not smelled them. But, you know, I've had them both, I had them all, have them all still, and this is one that I prefer. Next up, we have Le Male Le Parfum. I won't forget about this, you know, because the Elixir is out, and I love the Elixir. It's a great release too, but this one is still a fantastic one that I would still recommend these days and will recommend for a long time. Vanilla, cardamom, lavender, and iris. Kind of takes some of the original, which is, of course, just at this point iconic. You mix in a little bit of the sweetness from Ultra Male, just a little bit. Nowhere near that sweet, but a little bit of it. And then you get your own twist from that nice spicy cardamom and some iris and just those two coming together. It kind of gives it its own little unique personality and unique twist that we haven't had yet within this lineup. This is the first of the line to have iris and cardamom. Cardamom is a fantastic note that I love and was made popular in La Nuit de l'Homme, which is used heavily there. And I mean, it smells great. It really gives it a nighttime kind of mysterious edge to it. And iris has been made popular in many fragrances, Dior Homme Intense, Prada L'Homme, Valentino Uomo Intense, and many more. So, you know, you're kind of combining a couple trendy notes into this as well, which is why I think this one has done so well. But it doesn't smell like La Nuit de l'Homme or Prada L'Homme or anything like that. If anything, again, it smells like a mixture between Le Male, a little bit of Ultra Male sweetness, and then its own twist with those notes. I really like it. You know, it's a little bit more mature and refined than the original, but it's also not quite as refined as the Elixir. Again, that one's great, but this one is no slouch either. And, you know, on discounters, you're looking at around $110 to $120. This next one here is new as of the past couple of years. It's been on discounters now and usually around, I don't know, $50. Dior Chrome Parfum. It's got fir resin, sage, and bergamot. It's really all they want to give us, but I mean, fair enough. That's all you need to know about. And these note breakdowns are more or less constructed for marketing anyway. You know, at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter that much. As long as you can get down with the scent and it's something you enjoy, who cares what the notes are? You know, but it does kind of point you in the right direction. Another fresh kind of citrus, trendy aromatic. And you see that all the time. Sage, lavender, and other aromatics mixing with an ambroxan and some citruses and things like that. Take a look at the Y lineup, Ralph's Club, and so many more. It's a very popular and trendy style. This doesn't smell like Y, eau de parfum, eau de toilette, anything. It doesn't really smell like Ralph's Club either, but it's familiar. You know, it's something where when you smell this, it definitely doesn't stick out as something like, oh, hey, I'm super unique. You know, it's it feels like you've smelled something like this before. Now, I will say it is really good, and it's not as boring as maybe I'm making it sound like on camera. You know, especially off the opening, there is a really nice bite that this one has and a really cool texture off the top that leaves you coming back for more. It's a really good summer release with a little bit more of a soapiness compared to something like Chrome Extreme, which is great. Kind of smells like Profondo. This one maybe a bit more mature too. Can't go wrong with Terre d'Hermès Eau Givrée for summertime. I think this one's fantastic for this time of year. Another gentlemanly, more upscale and classy approach to a summer scent, where a lot of the times summer fragrances are quite the opposite, more playful. Not the case with this one. It's got citron, juniper berries, mineral notes, and of course a bunch of woods, which is kind of putting it into that Terre d'Hermès realm, given that it's a flanker of that, of course. Not as earthy and vetiver heavy and woody and dry as the original and a few of the others, of course. It's going to be the freshest of the line, but you still pick up on some of that. If you work a job where it's a bit more formal and maybe you're dressed up a bit more and you want something to wear to that job or workplace in the summer months, this is going to be a great one. You know, on discounters, around $100 or so, give or take, and these bottles are refillable as well, so you can buy a refill if you run out and save a bit of money that way, but not too crazy expensive, and it's worth the money if you want a good signature scent. We'll finish things up with Bleu de Chanel Parfum. I mean, this will probably be the most expensive one in this video, pretty much by far, because you can't really get it on discounters, and it's not cheap. That being said, as far as blue fragrances go, as far as a classy and refined, gentlemanly, fresh, clean, and soapy scent goes, this is just going to be still one of the best out there. I love Bleu de Chanel in its entirety. The eau de toilette, the eau de parfum, and the parfum. This is my favorite. You know, if I could only pick one, it would be this. But make no mistake, the others are great too. This is also the most expensive. So if this is out of your budget, you can go for the eau de toilette, go for the eau de parfum. You're going to achieve a very similar result to this one. A classy, gentlemanly scent. To me, the parfum is worth the money over the others. But I understand not everybody is wanting to make that jump, and I can't convince you to do that, and I don't want to convince you to do that. How you spend your money is something you have to decide. But I don't think too many people will be upset going Bleu de Chanel Parfum. Supreme versatility, great compliment factor, and super good quality. Alrighty guys, that's going to do it for me. Some fantastic fragrances that I think are worth splurging, saving up for, spending your money on. Buy responsibly, you know. I mean, these are always going to be around for the most part, so you don't need to do it right now. You know, whenever it's time, go for it. These are great. I will link them down below. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you tomorrow with another one. Take care.